Gigantic.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It is October 22nd, 2024. Gigantic Pop talking about NXT on the CW. I'm Glenn. And who knows? Maybe I'll be joined tonight by my co host, Matt Morgan. If not, it is late on the East Coast. Matt has had a heck of a couple weeks, and we understand if he is not able to make it tonight. But I am indeed here. And we're going to talk about NXT, an eventful NXT. Oh my God, the main event tonight where we had Fatal Influence taking on Stephanie Vaquer and Giulia. What an amazing tag team. What an electric moment between them and Damage Control backstage. Had some other stuff tonight. The build of Andre Chase versus Ridge Holland. We had Oba Femi and Tony D'Angelo escalating their rivalry ahead of their North American title rematch. We had Riz attacked backstage. What's going on there? Lexus King needs somebody in his corner to take on the No Quarter Catch crew. All that and more on tonight's special NXT on the CW. And in the news today, we found out that the day after, 2 weeks from tonight, we've got a little election going on in this country. So NXT is going to be happening that Wednesday at the old ECW Arena in Philly, and tickets are moving fast for that. So it was kind of crazy. I want to get the audience thoughts tonight. As Ricky Sinclair in the chat's pointing out, 6 matches tonight. Wow, really only 2 were men's matches? That's interesting, statistically. But I want to know what you all think about NXT on the C-Dub, because I used to talk about, one of the things I love about NXT is that it is a true variety show of professional wrestling shows, right? It is the Muppet Show personified, where you have all this action backstage, all these vignettes, all these interactions, all these promos, and then you've got the wrestling intermixed, and it feels like something is always happening. It's moving very fast. It's very exciting. It's very energetic. It is perhaps the most packed wrestling show in terms of what they do in that amount of time and variety. NXT, in my opinion, has been the best. But on the CW, with longer commercial times and no overruns, I feel like these have been shorter. I feel like these have actually gone by a lot faster in some ways, but not as much is happening. And I don't want to say there's a complaint. It's just more of an observation right now. But it's different, right? I mean, it's a good show. In some ways, it's a more streamlined show. But I miss some of the weirdness and some of the quirks that NXT historically has had. And part of that, too, is I think that they didn't want to start on the CW and show all those quirks. I think they wanted to present something a little more streamlined, a little more mainstream, to try and get some new audience and do sort of a soft reboot in this black and silver era that they've entered. But it's definitely a different feel than the, NXT 2.0 that we had for such a long time on the USA Network. So all in all, I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying it feels a little different than what we were used to in this more streamlined era. But hey, change is good, right? In the world of professional wrestling, things are always indeed changing. So let's see. We started tonight with Damage Control versus Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson. So Io Sky and Jakara began this action tonight, and Chelsea Green and Piper Niven interrupted what was a pretty good match that went on for a decent amount of time. So we had this double disqualification due to outside interference. I think that was a smart move, because the smart money would have been on Damage Control winning this. But obviously, since Lash and Jakara and NXT talents, they're getting a bit of a push. They want to keep them looking competitive. I think this was a good way to sort of, swerve the audience and not make any talent look less than great tonight. So I'm in favor of that. But I thought this was a great match to open the show. It was really enjoyable. And I'll tell you, though, I want to know what you all think about this, because I feel that with Damage Control showing up in NXT, what we saw in the main event tonight, should NXT bring back some women's tag team championships, some specific titles to the NXT division? Because I feel like Stephanie and Giulia would have those on lock for a long, long time, and it would be well deserved. And maybe that would delay a little bit where we're going with the main event women's picture for that main title between Roxanne Perez, Cora Jade, Stephanie, and Giulia. I think maybe this is a way that we could sort of let Stephanie and Giulia build as a team, so then the breakup will be so much more meaningful when we have that ultimate one-on-one direct competition between the two. I don't know. I'd really like to see that. But I want to know what you all think about this. However, let's talk about the second match tonight. Then we had Jaida Parker versus Tatum Paxley. And what was really interesting about this is, Jaida got the win, which I don't think hurts Tatum. I don't think Tatum's character is really dependent on wins or losses to get over with an audience and present a compelling storyline. But this was very much a middle match to get us where we're going with each individual storyline. And what I mean by that is that Lola Vice appeared after ringside to get into it with Jaida, and then Wendy Chu put Tatum in a toy box. Well, it was a box. It may have had toys in it, but Wendy put Tatum in it and wheeled her out of there. So I like that these two storylines will continue separately, but I thought this tonight was a good showcase and an interesting way to keep that progress going. Thank you, Tony Hayes. I'm sorry. I was looking at Tony Hayes as saying that my shirt and my hat remind him of his cubicle / prison cell at work because it's so gray. I literally was thinking today, I'm like, what can I wear that just matches this hat? I've got army green Kangol hat and a gray Kangol hat right near my broadcast station. And so I was looking at my shirts that I keep in the studio and just like, I'll put this on. I actually don't really have many shirts. I think I have one shirt that matches the green. So, I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best to coordinate for y'all. And I apologize. I am tired tonight. I was actually in New York over the weekend. And when I was there on a whim last week, I said, these WNBA finals between the Minnesota Lynx and the New York Liberty, these are pretty competitive. Maybe I should buy some cheap tickets in the nosebleeds. Should by some miracle this go to game 5. And lo and behold, Sunday night, I was at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn for game 5. The New York Liberty, who took out my beloved Las Vegas Aces, to see the New York Liberty win their first WNBA championship against the Minnesota Lynx. Now, I know there's been a lot of controversy about the fouls that were called in the fourth quarter, and that led us into overtime. Where I was sitting, I saw nothing. And literally by that, I mean that I was watching the gameplay and then there was a whistle and I was like, what? There was a foul? I didn't even notice anything from our vantage point. I just saw, people running back and forth and occasionally shooting. I'll say this, but I think both teams are incredibly talented, but man, they look tired after, 5 games just in a little over the span of a week in these finals. And if you look at what happened in the first game with the Lynx clenching it, how close games 2, 3, and 4 were, how Brianna Stewart basically won one of those games for the Liberty all by herself. Ionescu with that amazing shot 3-pointer from the logo. There were some great moments leading up to this, but I think by game 5, both teams looked like they were just ready for this to be over. So of course it went into overtime, and it was crazy. It was crazy to be there. We stuck around for a bit after, but I think, it could have gone either way. Again, I don't have a horse in this race. I wanted the Aces to win. I know the Aces definitely gave the Liberty a lot of competition this year, which perhaps why the Liberty was so tired going into this last 5-game series. But Ricky's asking, the cheap seats were like 100 and change. I mean, they weren't nothing, but compared to what they wanted for close to courtside, I mean, these seemed like a reasonable expense. And, if there was no game 5, we would have got our money refunded. We did go to some Broadway shows, and I will tell you that what we paid for the Liberty tickets, nothing compared to what they're charging on Broadway these days. And to that end, I'll get back to NXT in a second, but did see on Broadway Cabaret with Adam Lambert. He was great. I saw Oh Mary again for a second time. We saw a musical adaptation of the movie Teeth, which was something. There was a splatter zone at Teeth. They gave out parkas in the first 2 rows because blood flew at the audience like you were at a Guar show. And then Friday, I saw a new musical. If there's any fans of Broadway out there, you probably haven't heard much about this yet, but it is called Maybe Happy Ending, and it's based on a Korean musical. It's kind of like not as dark episode of Black Mirror. Maybe Happy Ending is actually about 2 helper robots in the future that live in this retirement warehouse for helper robots, and they strike up a friendship and go on an adventure. But the set to Maybe Happy Ending is one of the most impressive things I've ever seen out of the 100 or so stage productions I've seen in my lifetime. Maybe Happy Ending had the most impressive stage because it has all these moving parts and screens, and it was just incredible how they told this story. So if you're in the market for a Broadway show, this one you can still get cheap seats too because it hasn't taken off yet. It just started, but that was really, really something. Oh, Julian Floyd had skybox seats on Sunday for the WNBA finals. Wow. Barclays was amazing, by the way. I know there's, NXT TakeOver Brooklyn was in Barclays. Bailey versus Sasha, the match that got me back watching wrestling on a weekly basis again. Barclays was a great venue. I know SmackDown's going to be there Friday, and I hope to go there for a wrestling show one day because I thought it was really, really cool. And who knows what's going to happen with the WNBA with the expansion draft of the Golden State Valkyries launching next year. It's actually a very exciting time. Hell of a cap to the biggest season the league has ever had. But Big Time Baxter has a question, says, do you notice how much quality of NXT is vastly improved when they give us less Ridge, Brooks, and focus on the characters that are actually interesting? I agree. I feel like with Ridge, though, we have to kind of close out this Chase U storyline. I would like to see Chase U rebooted a little bit. But I think this Ridge storyline has to come to an end. It has not been particularly interesting. And in fact, I think Chase U has suffered. Chase U, when we had Jacy Jayne and the Chase U storyline and her rivalry with Thea Hale, that was really interesting. I think the Ridge thing was a misstep, and we just need to see it to its conclusion, which hopefully is Thea Hale kicking Ridge in the nuts. Just do me a favor, HBK. Here's the deal. I know you have me blocked on Twitter because somebody tweeted something mean at you and I was tagged in it. I understand that. But I know that NXT talents watched the last NXT podcast that I did. I assume some maybe have migrated over to Gigantic Pop to watch what we're doing here. But if you could just confirm for me, the powers that be, if you could just confirm for me that all these years, these 8+ years I've been covering NXT and championing it as my favorite wrestling show in the world, if you could just acknowledge that, just by having Thea Hale kick Ridge Holland in the nuts, I'll be forever grateful. And we'll consider it, we're even Stevens after that. That's all I ask. Anyhow, but yes, I'm looking forward to that coming to its conclusion. So, Ian wants to know about Gigantic Pop. So I think there's going to be more regular Raw coverage coming up, and that's probably going to be with Matt and Raj. I'll be on some of them. I, on that other channel that I podcast on, I've been gone for a little bit. I was on vacation, so it just didn't quite work out, but I'm going to be back there this Friday, and Fridays going forward to cover SmackDown. And then in the new year, we'll see what happens with schedules. But I've been doing Wrestling Inc. for 8 years now, and basically we'll keep doing it for as long as they'll have me. I'm bummed I'm not doing NXT on there anymore, but with Gigantic Pop, we were looking to do more, and Wrestling Inc. didn't want to cover NXT anymore. So here we are. And Matt Morgan should be here next week and weeks going forward. And maybe, who knows, maybe we'll have to get a third co-host just so we have a little rotation, a little backup when Matt has a trying week and needs to get his beauty sleep. So back to NXT tonight. And who needs co-hosts really when I have you, the chat room? Think about it. Adriana Rizzo attacked backstage by someone unknown. Who could it be? I have a theory, and I'm afraid that my theory is true. But then we had Luca Crusifino go out to the ring for Femi just to beat him up. And then Femi kept beating up Crusifino and Stacks. Tony D'Angelo came out. But Oba got a ladder from under the ring, sent Crusifino crashing through it. This was just the Oba Femi powerhouse match. Look, I don't think Tony D'Angelo is retaining that title in this rematch, which is a shame in some ways, not just because I love Tony D'Angelo and I think he's one of the best characters in all of professional wrestling, but I think Oba Femi needs to move on to bigger things, right? North American Championship feels a little small for what a giant superstar he is. So take that for what it's worth. So We then had a face-to-face of Trick Williams and Ethan Page, meeting one last time before Halloween Havoc. Ethan Page, he's a heel because he was out there wearing a suit and dress shoes with no socks. And if that's not heelish, I don't know what is. And he was wearing glasses. Which, do you think he really needs those to see, or you think he just wears them to look smarter? What say you, chat? This was fine. He seemed really focused on the blood and sweat aspect of things. Ethan Page talked about, tasting blood, tasting sweat, feeling blood, feeling sweat. I get it. I didn't know Ethan Page had been wrestling for 17 years. That was actually new to me. I was kind of like, I thought as an AEW guy, I was like, this is someone that came up from the indies. He's been doing this, maybe 5-10 years max. So when he said 17 years, I was kind of like, that's crazy. That's kind of nuts. That means he started in 2007. What a simpler time 2007 was. Isn't that weird? Do you guys have this too? Where people will talk about 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 17 years ago, and you're thinking, what, back in the 90s? And then you're like, no, dude, 20 years ago is 2004. That's not cool. That's not cool time. How you sneak up on us like that. I thought it was like 1996 still. We just celebrated the new millennium. Y2K was just like 2 or 3 years ago. Yes, Ricky Sinclair, we are indeed old. What's up, Bigfoot Sneakerhead, Tony Hayes, Justin Toner, Pronouns Pal. Oh, J.R. Smith, Big Time Baxter. I see y'all. Lulu Armel, thanks for coming out. So I don't know. This face-off was good, but I don't think Trick's losing that title. So it's just kind of swerve me, people. Give me something I'm not gonna see coming. Let's change it up. Let's make it a little different. Can we talk about this? Okay, so other people in the chat think this too. Backstage, Nikita Lyons was having a conversation, and then Femi comes up, and they have this little interaction. I'm like, oh my god, no! Did Nikita Lyons attack Adriana Rizzo? Did that happen? Is Nikita Lyons turning heel? Different thoughts about this, right? I think Nikita could work as and I've always thought this. She has a babyface reaction from the crowd, but she could be a stone cold anti-hero, right? Someone that the crowd roots for, but isn't necessarily a quote unquote good guy in the traditional sense. So the idea of her turning heel, yeah, I'm curious where they go with it, but I'm glad she's back. I'm glad she's on TV. And her and Oba, wow, that would be a powerhouse pairing. If they start doing mixed tag matches, they could just dominate everybody. It'd be crazy. But chat room, okay, you're into it. Okay, we'll let it cook. We'll see what happens. Then we had Sol Ruca versus Carmen Petrovich. Sol Ruca getting the win. Man, I feel like with Sol, this is a case where I feel like she should have won the North American Women's Championship. She should have been the first champ. And it's not to take anything away from Kalani. I think Kalani is very talented. I think Kalani is decently over and is getting some okay storylines. But I feel like the crowd just loves Sol, and they hampered her momentum by having her lose that match and then essentially getting very little since then, right? I don't know. I feel like this is the problem with NXT's women's division. And this is like the equivalent, by the way, of saying well, what's your weakness? You go, well, I care too much. What's the weakness of the NXT women's division? They have too much talent. And what I mean by that is they have too much talent and not enough storytelling time. Although tonight, predominantly women's matches. So they're getting a lot in there. But I feel like, man, it's like, how do you serve all these talents? And then you bring in Giulia and Stephanie and Delta, and all of this is happening, and somebody has to be denied an opportunity because there's literally only so much time they have on TV, and it's really it's unfortunate timing for Sol Ruca. If this was if you took Giulia, Stephanie, and Delta out of the equation, I do think Soul would be getting something more and something more meaningful. So I don't know. Matt Morgan has said it on this podcast last week. They need a dedicated women's show. I think literally NXT has so much talent, so much female talent, that I think if you were to reboot Level Up, there could be a good opportunity to do a very story-centric, heavy women's show on there and try something a little different. Or maybe just even a more story-centric show, both male and female talent, but really try and do something a little different and try and innovate. Because now that the NXT is on the CW, we almost need a laboratory again for NXT to be weird and to try things and for things to get over with the crowd and get over with the hardcore fans. And then we graduate that upward to the CW. Things from there graduate upward to Raw and SmackDown. Maybe not always for the best for NXT talents, but I do think having a true TV developmental program again, because NXT is not that. It is developmental, but I think not in the truest sense of the word. It is the, people that are on a path to graduating as opposed to those that are still finding their way and declaring a major. And that's not a Chase U reference. And yes, Justin, the Soul Snatcher is one of the coolest finishers in wrestling. I agree. So, after this match, we had OTM versus Hank and Tank. Hank and Tank getting the win. I mean, I don't know, man. Like, Hank and Tank seem like nice guys. They're entertaining. There was that race car driver out there with them. I mean, OTM, Jaida Parker. The problem is Jaida Parker is the like superstar of OTM. So I think that it's just tough, man. Like Nima and Price are good, but I think Jaida she is the leader of that band. She is Gladys Knight and they are the Pips. She is Florence, they are the Machine. I'm pausing as if I have a co-host that's going to slowly, that reference is going to sink in and they're going to say, I see what you did there. But, let's talk about, the main event of this tonight, which was Fatal Influence versus Stephanie Vaquer and Giulia. Oh my God, are Stephanie and Giulia good? Seriously. I mean, don't you just want to see them go against Bianca and Jade and win those women's tag team titles like right now? Because they had polish when they were doing like those dual moves together and stuff. It just this is not some thrown together team where it's like, oh, we'll just do this pairing. Like even their looks complement one another. Their styles complement one another. This was such a good match. Like they are the argument for why we need to bring back the NXT women's tag team titles. I thought they did such a good job in this main event tonight. I really dug it. And as Ricky Sinclair saying that their chemistry's on point. I agree. I just thought I want to watch them be the cornerstone, the centerpiece of a rebuilt NXT women's tag team division. And NXT has the women's talent. Big Time Baxter saying it's a toss up between Stephanie and Giulia as far as who I want to see beat Roxanne. I mean, we're going to have, probably Roxanne and Cora after they face Stephanie and Giulia in that tag match at Halloween Havoc. I think it is going to be a fatal four-way is what they're leading to ultimately. I am afraid, Roxanne or Cora is going to end up eating that pin. But man, like a one-on-one between Stephanie and Giulia will be amazing. That fatal four-way is going to be amazing. I'm really, really excited. As Bernie's pointing out, they had a great vignette building up the relationship between the two. I think it's funny to say, but it's like if one team can make you believe we need a division, they are truly it. And I think that you could have them rule that division for a year, even 6 months, build up new tag teams, new talents. And I think it could really be something. So I don't know. I'm excited at the prospect and potential of it. But, well, see, here's the thing. Cheaty saying, why can't Bianca and Jade just come down there and face sometime in the future? Well, because Bianca and Jade aren't going to drop that title. So it's not going to help. I don't think it's going to help Stephanie and Giulia to lose and look not good enough on NXT TV. I mean, it wouldn't be good with them losing on the main roster. They deserve to be elevated. I mean, Giulia and Stephanie, I think, are on Bianca and Jade's level. And I think they need to coexist as champs, just on separate brands. Or, man, say if we even had a Raw and a SmackDown split between them, that could work as well. Yeah, maybe have something on NXT. I mean, the thing is Gary Nails is saying somebody has to beat Bianca and Jade. I think what's going to be, unfortunately, if Stephanie and Giulia are able to beat them, it's going to be because Bianca and Jade have some sort of implosion and have their own rivalry. I don't know. But I agree with big time that, yeah, the main roster doesn't need them all the time. They could have a run in NXT. That could also be good. Although, I don't know. It seems like on the main roster, women's storylines are much more likely to get time if there's a title involved. So I don't want to take that slot away by not having them on the main roster as well. So I don't know. Just thinking out loud. But after this match, after Giulia and Stephanie won, Fatal Influence spun the wheel. It's going to be a spinner's choice match at Halloween Havoc. But then Zaraya, formerly known as Delta, briefly appeared on the ramp right as the show went off the air. And in my market, which tonight was Detroit, watching their CW feed, man, Family Feud was on even before Booker could chime in on Zaraya's arrival. So Zaraya's there. She's going to have her first match at Halloween Havoc. And we'll see who it's going to be against. But I think it's going to be cool. I think it's going to be good. I'm excited for it. So, since it's just me tonight doing this solo, if the chat has any questions, has any thoughts, has any things you want to share, I mean, this was a very, very women's roster centric episode of NXT. It was good though. I liked Lexis King saying that thing to Ava, making an allusion to both of them having fathers who wrestle, and then saying, yeah, but everybody loves you guys, which I thought was kind of clever. So yeah, we'll see. Bernie DC saying it was cut in DC as the lights went out, and just as they showed the previous Delta / Zaraya vignette. So that's kind of interesting. Yeah, man, NXT's got to time this show tighter, or because CW markets are not messing around with this at all. Not at all. Okay, everybody, get those final thoughts in, because man, I'm tired. So we flew back last night from New York on JetBlue, and I don't know why I did this. It was like, oh, I don't want to wake up at 3 a.m. and have to be at the airport for a 6 a.m. flight in New York out of JFK. So we're going to fly out at 8 o'clock at night. So what ends up happening? We wake up, check email, check some work stuff. And then it's like, well, don't have to leave to the airport till 6. What are we going to do? And you don't want to do too much because your luggage is checked at the hotel. It's not like you can come back and shower. So we went to the Museum of Broadway, which is actually pretty cool, I have to say. Up there with the Grammy Museum and the Academy, the Oscar Museum in Hollywood. Like there was decent enough. We went and got some food, but then around 5, we're like, okay, we're heading to the airport soon. And then flight gets delayed again. Flight finally is going to leave at like 9:30, closer to 10. So man, it was just one of those things where it was like just sort of waiting to go home. And so I was telling the wife, I'm like, next time we're just getting up at 3 a.m, going to the airport for a 6 a.m. flight so we could be home and rest all day and recover from all this travel. So let's see. And yes, Goodfellow, they're calling Delta Zaraya. That is her NXT name. Big Time Baxter saying CW is much more respectable than Fox when letting NXT going till exactly 10 p.m. Fox cuts off 3 minutes early. Chris is saying, why didn't Delta get to keep her name when Giulia and Stephanie did? I mean, Delta, I was shocked with this. Delta's only been wrestling since 2020, so maybe they didn't feel like there was as much stock in it. I don't know. And thank you, Ricky. I've only done like 2 of these solo before, so it's definitely interesting. Georges Haven't seen you in a while, sir. Hope you're well. Saying, what's up, Glenn? Question for you. How do I watch the East Coast feed on NXT? I was able to get it, was on the USA Network. Okay, so here's the deal. There's some services online that will stream television. They're not exactly legal. But one thing they do stream is like local channels from around the world. And I have one of those because some of you might remember I like watching MTV from Spain as I was learning Spanish. I still do from time to time. But yeah, you can just search online like IPTV. You'll find options. Many of them have locals. And I'm not encouraging this to normally Roger be like, we can't encourage something that's not exactly legal. But here's the deal. I think that if WWE and the CW aren't going to make it accessible to fans on the West Coast, like people want to watch your show, support your show, tweet about your show, and show love for your show. And it's really hard to be a part of the online wrestling community when you can't watch something live. In fact, why does NXT get this money from the CW? Why did Fox give them money for SmackDown? Why is Netflix giving them money for Raw? And the reason why is that live events are one of the few things people care about watching live, right? Sports entertainment, award shows, reality TV, etc. So it's like, yeah, man, I got to watch this live. And if you're not going to give me a legal means to do so, do you want me not covering this? Do you want people not tweeting about this? Like, it's the year 2024. WWE and CW need to step up and give West Coast fans an opportunity to watch NXT live. I think that there's a symbiotic relationship here. And part of that, if we're going to give them our time, attention, energy, and love, like they just need to allow us to participate with the rest of the online wrestling community. And that puts the East Coast at a huge unfair advantage. So that's my 2 cents. Again, I never want to encourage people to do things that are a little gray area, but yeah, it is what it is. And yeah, as Ricky's saying, it makes no sense for the ratings. In fact, I think they would have an additional 100, 200,000 more viewers each week if they're able to get live viewership on the West Coast. It's really crazy. And cool, everybody. So, hey, thanks for tuning in. I'm at Glenn Rubenstein. You know where to find me. And stay tuned, Gigantic Pop. We'll be back maybe later this week, but definitely next week. And until then, take care, everybody. Catch you soon.